In this interview, I talked to Ellen. She's had fantastic success with the keyword golden ratio. She has a site that's about 8 months old. She's reached $2,000 a month already, and it looks like she's on track to hit almost $3,000 this month when I'm publishing this video. Ellen and her husband have formulated a model to help you calculate the ROI for a keyword golden ratio article. So let's get to the interview and we go deep into the topic. By the way, if you're interested in hearing more, please leave a comment to let us know that you're interested in hearing more about her formula and maybe more stories from her. I almost forgot, if you're not on the email list, you should check it out. Go to nichesiteproject.com and hit the green button. Enter your email address. I'll send you all my templates, a bunch of other guides, and 15,000 keywords. So if you're interested in Amazon affiliate marketing, you should definitely check it out. Good morning, Ellen. Thanks for joining me. I'm really excited to talk to you today. So welcome to the Niche Site Project channel.
Thanks so much. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Ellen, we're just going to get right to the punchline pretty quickly here. But before we do, can you just tell me a little about yourself and your background?
Sure, absolutely. So I actually am a social worker by background. I worked in the public policy field for a number of years, 5 to 7 years, prior to really starting to get into internet marketing. And so I got into internet marketing probably in 2011. I started a travel blog actually. And at the time, I had read about all these successful travel bloggers who were making, tens of thousands of dollars a month or whatever on their travel blog. And I thought, well, gosh, I travel a lot and I was getting ready to move overseas. And so I was like, well, that would be like the perfect kind of online business to have to set up before our big move so that I can be bringing in some income because we moved for my husband's job. So I wanted to work too while we were overseas. So I spent about a year building up this travel blog, and that's how I got into internet marketing. Built the travel blog up to where it was doing well, making probably about 4K a month at its peak, and continuing to grow when honestly the great firewall, I was living in China. And so I got just really shut down by the internet in China. It was just impossible. But I never gave up. I just kind of had to put all that on hold. And then I returned to internet marketing a couple of years ago once we got back to the States. So kind of a bit of a circuitous route into internet marketing from the kind of political world or the advocacy world. I think it fits my personality well. So I like the challenge of it.
Cool. So now let's get to the punchline part. So you have a site that's doing pretty well, and that's how you and I sort of connected. And you launched the site in July 2017. Right now it's March. So it's, what is that, 8 months or something like that?
8.5 months probably, yeah.
Okay. So can you tell me about the most recent earnings, say in February, and what's the target for March?
Sure, yeah. So my most recent earnings, I think in February, was just under $2,000 for the month, so $1,950 maybe.
Okay.
And right now I'm on track to make about $3,000 for March.
Okay.
So that would be my goal, is to crack $3,000 by the end of March. I don't know if I'll do it. Maybe I'll get 28. I think if I can get to 2,800, I'll be fine with that because the trajectory is good. But yeah, that's my goal. I think for my past 30 days, I checked it this morning, and I think I was at just under 2,400 for the past 30 days. So
okay, that's
it's up in March.
Amazing. Congratulations. I mean, a lot of people don't get to the point that you're at. So that's a huge accomplishment, and that's amazing. And do you check your earnings every morning? Because it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Not so much because it's exciting. I think I actually check it out of fear, just to make sure that overnight my Amazon account didn't get canceled or something.
Right.
Same thing with Google Analytics. I'm always making sure I have people on my site so that I can check that it's not crashing. But yeah, I mean, I just like to tick off the progress in my own mind, kind of to set my mind as I go into my work day, because I'm doing this full time now.
Okay.
So I probably start around 7 or 7:30 in the morning if it's a good day. And yeah, that's how I set my work day. I remind myself of how far I've come, and it feels like I'm just, really kind of trudging along during the day, especially if I'm doing the writing myself. It's a good reminder just to set my mind that, yeah, you are actually making progress. This is going somewhere. This is working.
Okay. Awesome. I check earnings often too. So it's a normal thing that we do.
Yeah.
How much traffic is the site getting right now? Like per day on average, would you say?
Sure. Per day on average, probably on average about 1,700. The highest days are usually Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
And those are just under 2,000 a day. Then any other day can be 17, 18, something like that. So I'm around 43 to 45,000 a month right now.
Okay, cool. And I'm just going to recap what we just went over here. So the site's about 8 months old. It's making between 2 and 3,000 most likely. It's on an upward trend, and you're getting over 1,000 people, sometimes up to 2,000 per day. So that's fast growth. And I'll point out, I have another video where I talk about the timeline of like starting a site and what can happen quickly. Now, the thing is, usually the first 6 months are a little bit slower. So were your 6 months, it felt like maybe you weren't moving? And tell me about it.
Yeah, so I was completely prepared for the first 6 months for nothing to happen. I had watched a lot of your videos. I think the interview you did with like Dave Fox, and he was just like, Google hates you for the first like 9 months. Don't expect anything good to happen. And so I went into it like, I'm just going to do this. I'm not expecting great things. And so it was probably, I think I launched it in like July, and then around September, maybe late August, I actually heard about the KGR for the first time on one of your videos.
Okay.
And so it was so funny, actually. I was literally making dinner, chopping vegetables, and I had like my laptop up on the little kitchen sill listening to you, and really kind of tuning part of it out. And then you brought out like an Excel sheet. And that always like piques my interest when somebody does something that's like somehow data driven.
Right.
So I stopped like mid chop, and I was like, what is this guy talking about? And you pulled up the all in title and you showed me. And so after that, like right after that, I finished dinner and I just went and started doing KGR research in my niche. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's tons of these. So I immediately kind of switched around that late August, early September mark and started just pouring the KGR content on. I was at that point doing only KGR. And that's all I do now.
Okay.
Is basically KGR optimized content. Unless there's something like, oh, you really should cover this in this niche, but there's 1,000 competitors. Who cares? Just stick it up there.
Sure.
So that was probably early September. And I spent the next 6 weeks really pouring on the KGR content. And traffic started to pick up. I started to probably get a couple hundred a day. But the thing of it is that I really hadn't gone through and like fully monetized the site yet, because I didn't want to have the issue with Amazon of like, getting kicked out. Mm-hmm. So just like, wow, these posts are actually getting traffic. Maybe I should go monetize. So I spent the next week just going through and monetizing all of my articles.
Sure.
And within the next week after that, I was earning. So I think in terms of earnings, I actually wrote this down. In terms of earnings, I think I earned something like between September and October, my total earnings were $58.92. Mm-hmm. And so traffic was, let's just say, around 300 a day at that point. Going into November, traffic picked up to probably 500 to 600 a day, maybe a little higher on the weekends. But for the month of November, I earned over $500.
Nice.
So I went from less than $60 in a combined 2 months to making almost $600 in 6 weeks.
Nice.
Just on KGR content.
Amazing.
So it was after that, my husband and I, we were driving back from my parents' house in Indiana, and we live in New England. And so we were driving back and we were just like, whoa, this legit works. And so we decided kind of to really pour into it at that point and see where it goes. So I kind of thought, oh, well, maybe it was just the holidays or something, but I've done better after that, and my traffic has picked up after that. Mm-hmm. So cool. I'm sure next year I'll do better. I'll have a holiday bump, but I don't really think I did this year.
Interesting. It's funny. I had a conversation with my wife in 2013 maybe. Yeah, it was 2013, and I started a site around the same time period in July 2013. And I remember I was in Indiana as well, funny enough, in the northern part. My
Yeah.
wife has family up there, and we were driving around.
Right, right.
And I remember talking in the car for like 2 hours about internet marketing. Back then, she had a higher tolerance for listening to me talk about it. She's had
Yeah.
enough at this point. So,
Oh, yeah.
so I
Yeah.
want to backtrack a tad. So, you said that you found the KGR in September. That's a really cool story, by the way. Me picturing other people watching my videos, like for real. What was your strategy prior to it?
That is a really good question.
I almost want you to mention the other like marketers that you may have been following as a
Mhm.
reference point, because I probably followed the same people and then I found my own area. So it's totally
Yeah.
cool if you want to mention people specifically.
I had done this before with the travel blog and had had some success. I'd had some articles that had ranked highly in Google. And so my strategy was just to do keyword research, but on things that I thought it made sense that people would be looking for in a particular niche. And so I started using KW Finder
Hmm.
was the keyword tool that I was my paid tool that I was using. And then I was also using Uber Suggest, which is a free tool. So I was using those two tools and I was following pretty much all of the other leaders in kind of the niche and authority site field other than you. I hadn't actually stumbled upon you yet. And so, niche pursuits, authority hacker, and I had just come across income school, I think. So I guess, YouTube figured out what I was looking for at that point, and then you popped up
Cool.
soon after. So my strategy really, I think I listened to one of them had done a podcast or something and just talked about, pouring a bunch of articles on in your niche and give it 6 months to a year. Doesn't matter what the competitiveness is. And I'm sort of putting words in their mouth there. They probably had much more nuance to it. But I wasn't really too concerned with the competitiveness of the keywords I was using. I just thought, oh, I'll eventually start to rank for those. I was looking for ones that in Keyword Finder would have like a lower competition score. But honestly, now that I do KGR with those, that doesn't line up.
Right.
So I don't really even use those tools anymore. It just doesn't prove true. So I was going to competitors' websites that were similar and looking for what they were covering. And then I was just like, oh, I'm just going to do articles that are better. And since I knew enough about it, I could tell what kind of keywords they were targeting. Sometimes I'd maybe look it up in SEMrush or something. But mostly I was just reading the content and trying to do it naturally. And it's not that I think that the other folks like Authority Hacker and such didn't provide valuable information. I think that they did, and it definitely got me started. I actually think it's kind of a full puzzle, and each plays their own role. So, Authority Hacker specializes in like really detailed posts or podcasts on a very specific issue, but maybe if you don't buy their course, you're not getting quite the how-to. So what was really missing for me in my strategy and in the people that I was following, what was kind of that exact how-to, a formula. I really wanted a formula. And so when I was sitting there chopping vegetables and I hear you pull out this Excel sheet, and you start going over this formula, I was like, finally, somebody has done what I was looking for. So some of the articles that I published before that I had kind of found, okay, a competitor covers this, they do sometimes get traffic, but they hardly ever do. Like if I had just kept with that strategy, I might get 100 views a month. And actually, I have a second site that I was focusing on more than the current site at the time, and I didn't use KGR for it. And so I'm going back now and kind of KGRing it, if you will, and it gets like 100 views a day. And, I kind of follow some different strategies. Some of that was my own doing, others maybe I was listening to other folks. But yeah, so I think pulling pieces from kind of everybody's teaching has been helpful, at least in terms of my progress.
Yes. And that totally, thanks for all that background, by the way. It's really helpful because, I learned from, Niche Pursuits and Spencer and then Authority Hacker. And to be honest, I haven't gone through their courses and stuff, but from afar, it looks like they follow roughly the same type of model, if I just had to guess. And I think you're right about pulling the pieces from different sources, and you had enough experience so you knew which pieces to pull.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I
I think
see,
that was key. Yeah.
yeah, because it's really easy to pull the wrong each of the wrong
Right.
pieces, and then
Yeah.
you're much worse off, and
Yeah.
and you don't understand why, but you already knew because you had a site in the past.
I had the site in the past. I'd been studying internet marketing for a long time. And also, I should add, I actually had the time. So, kind of a key piece in my story in terms of why I even got started doing this anyway was because with my husband's job, we actually ended up having to move quite a bit. So, I was just, going to be in a position where I was always going to have to be leaving a job or moving to a new city with no contacts, trying to get a job. So I wanted to do something that I could do from anywhere in the world.
Sure.
And that wouldn't be dependent upon his job, so that I didn't feel like every time we move, I have to give up my life and,
Right.
move. So I wanted to be able to take it with me. And so we decided together as a couple that this would be our strategy, was to have me focus on this full time. And having that time did make a huge difference.
Sure.
Because I could kind of distill down all of the knowledge and the information that I was following from everybody and have time to wrap my brain around it, pick and choose what I wanted to do, and also test it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you're in a position to where maybe you have an hour a day to spend on your niche site, or maybe even less, plus you're trying to consume information from people, that can be really difficult. And I think that's where it's very helpful to have a structured course, because what you're essentially paying for in a course is not just the knowledge. I mean, a lot of that knowledge you and the others provide for free on YouTube. But the other piece of it is, well, here's all of that information in the order you need it, in the framework that you need it, and you can maximize your time. So it's, value for money, and kind of the time value of money, that's important too.
Sure.
So I have to add that I think my situation is a little different. I don't want people to think that I'm just like, oh yeah, like you can just find all these KGR where,
Right.
Be making $1,000 a month in 6 months. No way.
Right.
It took a lot of hard work. I probably spend over 8 hours a day on this at this point. I hire writers. I do some writing on my own, a little bit of both. But right now it's not passive for me.
Got
in
it.
that regard.
Got it. And by the way, you haven't taken any of my courses, right?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
And I think, well, that's key to point out too, right? Like you don't need the courses. There's plenty of information. And oftentimes, I mean, you made a great point for me, so thanks. But the course 5-figure niche site, like, it's almost more important, not more important, but it's just as important what I don't put in and I omit from the course, because there are many, many strategies and details that give you like tiny incremental gains. They're very, not necessarily advanced in complexity, but they're advanced in application. So if you are 6 weeks into your site and you're trying to do something for like that I would do for a site that's like 3 years old, you're probably wasting your time. You're probably not going to get anything out of it. So it's really key to know like what to do and when and in the right order. So no one piece is really hard. It's just if you have to do 100 steps and do them in the right order, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing, especially if you only have like an hour a day. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would recommend the course just from what I know of the outline you've provided for it and the content you've provided online. I can say definitively that if I hadn't had the prior experience building sites and doing internet marketing on some level, and if I didn't have the time available to do it like I do, I would absolutely be paying for the course. Unless I just somehow miraculously found thousands of KGR terms
right.
and, was able to do that myself and was like, oh, I think this is working. I don't really need the course. I think the project management aspect that you bring to it is very helpful. And I tend toward being very project management oriented myself, even though I'm not a PMP, but I am good at managing, projects and teams and stuff. And so I think that if I didn't have that, I would absolutely need the course in order to succeed. So
cool.
I would put that out there for people to certainly consider.
Thanks for saying that. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to move to something very interesting. I've heard people have asked me about it, and I just haven't done the research because I didn't think it was something you could calculate. So you have sort of a hypothesis about the ROI for a keyword golden ratio article. Can you just walk me through an example and explain how this works? And by the way, I'll probably put some numbers up on the screen to help people visualize as you're talking through it.
Great. Fantastic. Yes. So this is the formula that has worked for me and proven true for me. Results may not necessarily be applicable to and transferable to everyone, but I had heard, I think on Income School or that the idea of you could earn $1 per month for every view you got in one day. So for example, if you're getting 1,800 views a day consistently, then you would theoretically be making $1,800 a month. And so I latched onto that, like, oh, this can't be that hard. Like, surely if I just do that, I'll be able to get to that point. And so I wanted to see what that would look like, for my particular niche and regarding the KGR specifically. So I'll have to refer to my notes a little bit on this one, but I do pay for some of my content. I've probably written half of it and paid for the other half. And so this ROI calculation is based on paying a $20 for an article. So sometimes I'll pay more than that, but this is just kind of general $20 an article. So if you pay $20 an article right now with my current traffic, I'm getting 2.5 visits per day per KGR article. So I took out all those other articles that I'd published before, and these calculations don't include that. So about 2.5 visits a day per KGR article. On average, I'm earning about $1.50 for each of those views. So it comes out to one article times 2.5 views a day times 1.5 views. And that gives you total for how much you can expect that article to earn for you. So an example of this would be, to put it in practical terms, let's say I order 100 KGR articles at $20 a piece for a total of $2,000. So I'm looking at how quickly am I going to make a return on that investment? Is that really going to pay off? And if so, how quickly is that going to happen? So I've paid $2,000 for these articles. And just for the sake of this, let's forget the Google sandbox. Let's assume they start getting traffic like right away. Your site's not new, your site's not new. Mm-hmm. They're going to start ranking immediately. So each post is receiving 2.5 views a day, earning an average of $1.50 each. That's going to give me on those 100 posts $250 per month just for that batch of 100. So I spent $2,000 total. So after 6 months, I would have earned $1,500 off of those articles. So at 6 months, I haven't quite made back my initial investment, but I'm getting close. And then after 12 months, I will have earned, assuming no growth, static results, they'll earn $3,000 total for the 12-month period. So spend $2,000, end up with your $2,000 back plus $1,000 more. So I get a 50% return on my investment. I've recouped my cost in 4 to 6 months and then ended the year with like a 200% return on my investment. It just kind of depends on how each article performs, but that's just kind of an average. I'm going for the goal of within 6 months, I want to make back my money. And within the next 6 months, so within 12 months, I want to double my money. And so as an investor in the stock market, that's pretty impressive to me that like in 1 year, I could double my money.
Right.
It may take me a couple years to double my money in a good economy. Right. I might not get to that point for like 5 years or something. Sure. And so that's actually really impressive because I think people probably are like, oh, I don't want to spend money on content if I don't know it's going to work. My suggestion would be spend a little money on content or a lot of time writing it and prove it. I think the example you use is 10 posts, maybe do 35 or something like that. Something a little bigger because, not all of the KGR terms will end up ranking.
Yep.
Most probably will, but it's not guaranteed. So, experiment with it with kind of a smaller batch. And then once you earn money off of that batch, my recommendation at least would be don't be afraid to pour that money back into scaling your business and paying for content or writing content yourself. But yeah, so from an investment perspective, I actually think it's really very interesting because I'm sure that holds a lot of people back is this, you feel like you're spending money by paying for content. But in reality, after a year, that may allow you to earn. And if Amazon Associates program stays around and Google doesn't penalize you, you're just going to keep accelerating that growth. And so it's going to pay off so much more down the long, in the long run. So
cool. This is amazing, and I have not come up with such a model, right? I haven't come up with a model like this. Number one, I feel like I spend most of my time still trying to convince people that it can work. So those comments are pretty funny when I get them, but yeah. I appreciate them nevertheless. So this is really cool, and I like that you made a number of assumptions, but you move forward, right? We don't ever have complete data, so you came up with your best guesses in the beginning, and then as you got more data, you were able to go and apply it more specifically. What were you going to say?
Yeah, this data is probably based on my performance about 4 to 6 weeks ago. So, maybe I'm earning more than $1.50 per article. I tried to kind of just lowball it. I wanted worst case scenario. What am I going to do? What am I going to get in terms of my return? Yeah. And so I'm continuing to scale as a result of that. And I think it also should be added in terms of does the KGR work? Yes, it does work. That doesn't mean that everyone can do it. So sometimes the problem is not with KGR. It could be in how the person is doing KGR or other problems with the site. I think we shouldn't just jump to the conclusion that it's KGR's fault, just in the same way we shouldn't jump to the conclusion that it's the website owner's fault.
Right.
It could be a number of factors. And I just encourage people, what do you have to lose? If you don't want to spend the money on KGR content, write it yourself. Take a month and do it. All you've lost is your time.
Right.
Worst it can do is make you money.
Yeah, so, that's right. That's
there
right.
are worse things to happen in the world than you work for a couple hours and it makes you money. So
cool. And I again, it's really awesome to see how you made some good assumptions and move forward. So as I was listening to you explain it, I'm thinking about, you're probably in the sweet spot of those averages and stuff. Do you have any predictions on where the model falls apart, some amount of traffic or some amount of articles or something like that?
Yeah, I think at this point, the main threats to the model are what would be threats to all of us. If Amazon, changes their affiliate program or does away with it, then, well, that sucks. And then if I was to get some sort of Google penalty, that could impact it. I do notice I do that kind of the Google dance. Sometimes I will change positions, but I'm still usually up there. So I think if I was to get penalized, then obviously it would drop off significantly. Sure. I feel like the other week I had a low week in terms of traffic, but my earnings still continue to go up. So I think it's kind of, it all depends on who comes to your site and what they order, right? My products are not changing price, but the visitors to my site are changing and what they buy does change. So I don't know if it falls apart just on its own without some kind of external catalyst. In terms of kind of going forward projections that I have, I'm assuming no growth for my projections. I assume no growth. So if I have an article that's ranking 4 or 5, I'm assuming it does not become number 1. That's what my calculation is based on. It's also based on if I have an article that's number 1, I'm assuming it doesn't go to number 5. But, all things being constant, my way to growth is adding more content. Other people could take a totally different approach, add a lot of backlinks, skyrocket those 4 or 5 positions up to 1 and 2, probably double or triple their page views a month, and probably earnings go along with that. I'm not assuming that will happen. And right now my focus is on scaling with content rather than with links. I'm not anti-link by any means. In fact, one of the reasons my travel site did so well in a competitive niche, it had almost 700 backlinks by the end there. So, and all of that was more or less organic. I think that there were shadier tactics back then. I think the shadiest I ever did, which I didn't realize was shady, was a link exchange. Sure. There's some great resources, other travel blogs, I didn't do PBNs, none of that. But so I don't plan to do any of that going forward. I'm just hoping to generate natural backlinks, then maybe do some intentional backlinks kind of the second half of this year after the content has scaled. So.
Cool. We haven't talked about backlinks at all. So have you done any link building for this site at all?
No, I haven't. And for the other site that's not really monetized and not really earning as a result, I haven't done any backlink building for that either, but it was generating it much more naturally on its own than my site that is earning. So I thought that was interesting. And it kind of says to me like, okay, in the next 6 months, you really should take this seriously. I haven't even done any blog commenting on it. I should be doing that.
Right.
I would recommend your listeners to be doing that.
Sure.
No idea how much it would help, my current content at this point. I think, backlinks are just good practice in SEO. So
what do you think the other site is getting like natural backlinks?
It was kind of accidentally an undercovered piece of content that was very well organized. It was like blank ways to blank and, just a very linkable article. And then it kind of had a sister article. And so then people would kind of click over to that and maybe they'd link to one or the other. They were semi-related. And then there were some other articles on there that I don't remember that got more natural backlinks. Mm-hmm. But I think it was the type of information that people are actually wanting to include and link to in their own posts. Whereas with my money site, who's going to link to best X for Y, right? Like in their own article, like here, go to this other website and, click on their links. So
cool.
I think that's why, but I have no data to back that up.
Right. Well, it makes sense. I mean, it's rare when people are going to link to an affiliate article. A lot of times those are okay resources, but I mean, a lot of us know they're not the best. We're literally trying to review and sell something. So people are not going to it.
Yeah, even if it provides valuable information, which I always tell my writers, that's our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is not to sell this product. Our ultimate goal is to provide the reader with the information they need to make an informed choice because they're the expert in whatever it is that they're wanting to buy for. So you brew beer. I don't need to tell you, certain things about that. I just need to provide certain information that helps you draw an informed conclusion. And so they may link because my articles do provide that valuable information, but if they know probably enough, right? Yeah. They're probably, I'm going to get this guy some affiliate commissions if I link to that. Why would I want to do that? Unless they're an affiliate, marketer, but they understand it, so.
Right. So let's sort of shift gears, kind of move to the motivation area. So, you're working on your own. Do you have any tips for people that are trying to do this on the side or just in general, like if they're just getting started?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is it does work and it is worth it, but just keep in mind that this is kind of not something that's going to make you money overnight. If you're needing money now, go get, you always use the term, go dig a ditch. Right. Well, that's, probably a really good idea. Actually, go get a job elsewhere if you really need a side hustle that brings you in money now. But if you are wanting something that will bring you in passive income for the long term, then my number one piece of advice is just stick with it. And don't be afraid to get creative. So I'm posting on a lot of keywords that a lot of my all-in title searches result in no other searches coming back. Sure. And I think to myself, well, why is that? And I'm like, well, I guess I looked at the problem differently.
Right.
And so I think, don't be afraid to think outside of the box and say, okay, well, what are other competitors in my niche doing? I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I'm not cover those terms. I'm not going to try to beat them. I'm going to go around the back door and, cover these other topics. So I would say that don't be afraid to think outside the box and take a different approach than what others in the field seem to be doing. I'd say, and then I think the other thing is time management. So, if I wasn't doing this full time, I would have to set aside time in the evenings to do it. And what I did for my travel blog, I was working full time for an entire year while I was building up that site. Probably 4 nights out of the week, I spent 2 to 3 hours in the evenings doing it. That was tough. I mean, my husband and I would eat dinner together and then kind of do our own thing, maybe in the same room, but it was still, sad.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to make sacrifices like that and talk with your spouse, your partner, and your children about what they're comfortable with, and be on the same page with, anyone in your family or your household, anyone else who is a significant part of your life. Just be on the same page and discuss it with them in terms of what is our goal, in terms of why are we doing this? Do you need extra income, or do you want to build up like an early retirement and be able to live off of your website income? What's your vision, and kind of how do you all need to work together to achieve that? Because I couldn't do what I'm doing, if my husband wasn't going to a regular job every day, a regular W-2 job every day. And, he's providing us with health insurance. And, maybe by the end of the year, I'll be earning more than him, but that still wouldn't negate the need for him to actually still have that job.
Right.
And so it's something that we have to constantly talk about together, talk about the strategy. Are you still okay with this? Or, most of the time he's like, do more. And I'm like, do you realize how much time this takes? But, if we're going to do more quickly, we need to spend more money, up front. So I would just say, talking with the people in your life, I think maybe that's, something that could be really key, because I think if I don't have children, but if I had children, this would be a little overwhelming. So if you're a mom out there or a dad and you have kids and you're like, I could never do this, you can do it. Just, you have to be really structured and intentional, and think about all the ways you're wasting time on a daily basis. Cut Facebook out, cut even your morning coffee run, cut that out, make the coffee at home and spend that half an hour just in front of the laptop.
Yeah, it's all priorities. Yeah, and all that was good life advice too, not just for niche sites, but yeah, very.
I don't generally give life advice, please. I'm not the best example, but it's
right.
Good.
Okay.
I hope it's useful to someone at least.
Yeah.
So.
No, I feel like I just had a therapy session, so that was really good.
Well, I am a social worker, originally, so.
Good advice. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any goals for your site over, let's say, 6 months, 12 months? Where do you want the site to be? Aim high.
Yeah. I want, by the end of the year, by the end of 2018, I want to double the amount of content that I have on just this one site. I'm also in the process of launching a couple more. Each are in their different phases of development. I don't like to ever be doing full scale more than one at a time. So I'll be doing some test batches of 30 articles and then kind of leaving it for 6 months, that sort of thing. So I want to double my content. And honestly, by the end of the year, I really want to be making 5 figures a month off of just this one website.
Nice.
That's my goal in terms of numbers. And in terms of numbers going forward for 2 years beyond that, I just want to continue to scale at that sort of growth rate. But I want to have 3 to 4 sites that are all performing similarly. And I've already done all the KGR research. I'll still do it, right? But I have enough right now in my Excel sheet to kind of go forward for the next couple of years. So
awesome.
I know you say don't do keyword research that much, but I like it. I just always find it accidentally. I'm like, oh, I wonder where that fits on the KGR. And it's oh, we'll add that. So that's my goal. I loved the concept you used of 5-figure niche site. And so that's what I think in my mind every day. I'm literally building a 5-figure niche site that will earn me 5 figures a month, hopefully. So, awesome. And I also should add, I live in high cost New England, so thinking in terms of what is a full-time income, for somebody where I live versus where I grew up in Indiana, it's basically double, right?
Yeah.
So I could probably get by on $5,000 in Indiana or $6,000, but up here you need a little bit more. So.
Right. Can totally relate. And I was going to say, people don't forget you have to pay taxes. That's 35-ish, 40% or so. So it sounds like a lot, which it is. And it's fantastic, but you do have to pay taxes and stuff.
It can go quickly. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that is amazing. And Ellen, this has been enlightening. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining and sharing your story. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Take care.